Staff orders for the public service, government of Jamaica. Now, it is important for you to read through and know what this government of Jamaica staff orders says. If you are employed to the Jamaican government or you intend to apply for a job with the Jamaican government, it will outline their roles and responsibilities as an employee. Now, let's continue. Preface. The staff orders were last revised in 1976. And as you can see, this is the 2004 version. It's the latest version available, which I've downloaded. It's 96 pages actually, right? But let's start reading through it to see what it says. The staff orders were last revised in 1976. During this decade, the rising tide of human expectations has continued unabated, and the rate of change in technology, as well as in economic, political, and social structures, has continued to accelerate. In a social milieu where governments are committed both to initiate and manage social change, the challenge facing public administration and the civil service in particular is to acquire the techniques and ethics of modern administration, which will make it possible to narrow the gap between the promise and realization of economic betterment and social equity. Perhaps the most urgent demand being made on the civil service is to achieve greater effectiveness in the implementation of programs and policies, and by the same token, the achievement of levels of technical competence, so that the public administration will not serve to inhibit or frustrate the activities of the private sector. One way of revisiting the civil service is to build a service which defines the job and tasks to be done, the qualifications and skills required to do them, and then to establish a system of rewards, incentives, and achievement based on actual performance. To this end, new personnel policies and procedures have and are being introduced into the civil service to give effect to government decision to bring the merit system to fruition. The revised staff orders are intended, therefore, to point the way towards more flexible operational procedures and to give effect to continuing improvement in conditions of service. They are also intended to reflect some of the changes which have taken place in the administrative milieu, as well as in organizational theory and practice. At the same time, they embody the features of the previous regulations which have proved useful. The revised orders are to take effect from August 1, 2004. Signed by Omar Davis, the then Minister of Finance and Planning. We have the table of contents. We will be seeing each of these topics and subtopics, these sections and subsections as we go along. Let's scroll through. Right. Introduction. The staff orders of the Public Service of Jamaica govern the conditions of service for public officers. It comprises provisions from relevant legislation, regulations, policies, directives, and the results of collective bargaining agreements between the government and the respective unions and staff associations. For the purpose of these orders, the term public officers, public employee, officers, and employees are used interchangeably. So when you see officer, it means a public officer. Employee means public employee. And refer to persons employed in the central government service in accordance with the public service regulations. So the central government service, that's the government of Jamaica, not local government as you have in each parish at the parish council. It's the central government, right? Overall government. Now, 2. In these staff orders, except where content otherwise requires, a permanent secretary is responsible for the overall management of a ministry under the general direction and control of the minister. So the permanent secretary responsible for the overall management of a ministry, whether it's the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Health, and so on. A head of department is responsible for overall management of a department, reports to the permanent secretary, and may have some other autonomous reporting relationships. Alright, so the head of department reports to the permanent secretary, and the permanent secretary reports to the minister of that ministry. Alright. The expression appropriate authority means the permanent secretary of the ministry or the head of department where the department does not fall under a ministry. So appropriate authority means either the permanent secretary or the head of department. Alright, let's look at 3. It is the responsibility of each permanent secretary or head of department to ensure that the staff orders of all government notifications and instructions issued from time to time are brought to the attention of employees and made readily available and easily accessible. Okay, so the permanent secretary or head of department should present the document or sections, relevant sections of the document to employees in that ministry. Any or all provisions of the staff orders may be adopted for use by any other entity within the wider public service. Alright. Now, Chapter 1. Appointments. We will look at appointments in a different video. Yes, an introduction. Testing, staff orders. Testing 1, 2, 3. How the hell this happen? Hold on there. Start. An error occurred. Oh, error occurred, yes, sir.